If you've been keeping up with gaming news lately, you've no doubt heard about Highguard, the new live service FPS title from former developers of Titanfall and Apex Legends has taken on a bizarre life of its own in recent weeks. First revealed at the Game Awards 2025, it was given the prestigious honor of being the last announcement of the show. However, the typical expectations and pressure to deliver that come from that spot proved too strong, as viewers at home were not impressed. The disappointment of this being the final announcement, combined with the general fatigue of games in this genre, led Highguard to receive a ton of hate following the event. But that part of the story isn't all too interesting. We've seen countless games that look just like this get made fun of and then fade into obscurity. What really caught my eye about Highguard is what would come after the Game Awards. Despite being given a release date that was mere weeks away, developer Wildlight Entertainment disappeared. 43 days went by with nothing. No more trailers, no further updates, not even a single tweet for over a month. Many wondered if the game would even be released at all. But with just 3 days to spare, Wildlight re-emerged, announcing a launch showcase and reconfirming its intended release date. This whole situation had me incredibly intrigued. Call me a sicko, but the strangeness of it all made me unironically very excited to try this game out and see what in the world was going on. Now that it's finally here, I have a lot of thoughts, so let's talk about 2026's most mysterious release. Highguard's gameplay loop centers around several different in-game events. First, your team fortifies the base and gets it ready for attack. Then you go out into the world to loot up, opening chests, grabbing armor, and gathering materials. After a set amount of time, a device called the shield breaker will spawn in, and at this point, each team fights to capture it. Once claimed, you take it to the enemy team's base and start the raid. At this stage, the attacking team is attempting to plant bombs and do damage to the base. Whichever base hits 0 health first loses the game. If that sounded complicated to you, it's because it is quite complicated. So to simplify everything I just said, you fortify your base, loot up, and then attack or defend depending on who gets the shield breaker. I think that sounded a little more reasonable. Your playable character has everyone's favorite feature, hero abilities. Abilities include a bird that spots enemies for you, a claw slash that can easily break through barricaded walls, a protective barrier summon, and much more. Weapons are your typical SMGs, ARs, and everything else you would expect to see. These can be upgraded with loot drops or at the shop where you spend materials. Lastly, one of the more unique mechanics is the mounts you can hop on at basically any point in the battlefield that allow you to move faster. And that is Highguard. Did you get all that? Because yeah, it's a lot. I'm not sure I've ever played a game that blends this many different layers into a single game mode. The developers have been using this totally new game style they've created as the main selling point. But honestly, once you break it down further, there's not really anything truly different here. You fortify your base like Rainbow Six Siege, loot up across the map like your battle royale of choice, the shield breaker is a fancy version of Capture the Flag, and the raids are a faster paced Call of Duty Search and Destroy. So while combining all of these things into one match certainly creates a unique experience, none of the individual elements are anything you haven't seen before. And I think that would be my main concern about Highguard's future. There isn't really one specific thing I can point to where I say, that is why you need to play Highguard. Because almost all of it could be found somewhere else. That's not to say there isn't some fun to be had here though. The moment-to-moment engagements can be quite exciting as you defend your base or crash down a wall to rush in. And I will say it's pretty cool racing to the shield breaker points on your mounts as you swerve through enemies and gunfights. The main problem though is that there's too much downtime in between these fun moments. The opening defense stage is super underbaked. You place 5 random wall reinforcements and then just kinda stand there waiting for the timer. And the initial looting stage rarely leads to any gunfights whatsoever unless you are actively seeking them out. And so far I haven't found much incentive to fight in this stage since enemies don't drop anything. So basically you spend the first several minutes of every match doing a lot of nothing. While it may lead to some fun payoff moments, that's kind of a lot to ask your players to go through every single match. I suppose these are things that can be adjusted with future updates, so we'll see what they decide to do moving forward. Aside from that, my biggest question mark would be the 3v3 decision. I'm seeing a lot of people debating this online, and I'm genuinely not sure where I stand on it yet. It's tough since the matches change so much as they play out. During the looting and shield breaker segments, 3v3 can feel a little light on gunfights, but during the raid sections, the game might be literally unplayable if you added any more people because the areas are so small. I think they maybe could have squeezed 4v4, but I don't know if I'm ready to say for sure this is a change that should or should not be made. Bigger complaints that definitely need fixing for me are centered around optimization. There are nowhere near enough settings. There are some basic ones missing, like the option to turn off motion blur, and players who are going to want to optimize this game and play it seriously will be very disappointed by the options available to them. Additionally, it needs more maps and game modes to be playable for longer. But the number one thing I absolutely cannot believe is missing are stats. There is no in-game scoreboard, and as far as I can tell, no profile stats you can check afterwards. It's frankly insane to not have any form of stat tracking available in what wants to be a competitive multiplayer game. So overall, here's my conclusion of Highguard after playing for over 3 hours. This is not the train wreck or disaster some made it out to be. There is nothing terrible about this game, nothing laughably bad that we're all gonna make fun of for the next 5 years, and nothing that was worthy of so much vitriol after its reveal. At the same time, this is far from some incredible masterpiece that I will wholeheartedly recommend, but I think Wildlight has crafted an okay framework that I would not doubt will grab hold of a very dedicated audience. Whether that dedicated audience ends up being big or small is another question entirely. I'll be really interested to see over the next few weeks how this game performs, and how that may have related to their unconventional marketing strategy. After Highguard's appearance at the Game Awards, it was safe to assume the plan was to continually drop new information, trailers, and updates that would lead into its release. But as we covered in the intro, that's not how things went. After Highguard's reveal, the internet began tearing it down and attacking it. Gamers started doing that thing where they are rooting for something to fail for no discernible reason other than they just don't want to play it. As we've seen from many other examples, when your game is in this position, it's nearly impossible to change the conversation. Any trailer they put out was going to get dislike bombed, anything they tweeted or be responded to with some snarky joke that would ratio the original post, and any public statement would come across as desperate. So rather than add fuel to the fire, they went away. Ironically, this idea of staying quiet until the game was playable actually started as their original plan. Wildlight's CEO Dusty Welch told PC Gamer that their intention throughout Highguard's entire development cycle was a shadow drop, similar to what Respawn did with Apex Legends in 2019. But Jeff Keighley got an early look at the game, really enjoyed it, and decided to offer the team their now infamous final spot at the Game Awards. What was intended as a very generous offer by Jeff spiraled out of control once the internet decided they didn't like what they saw. But according to Highguard's creative director Jason McCord, the plan was always for the team to go dark after the Game Awards reveal, and it was not done in response to the backlash. Whether it was the original plan or not, Wildlight's decision to give everyone the silent treatment may have actually been the best possible scenario. If McCord's claim is to be believed, then it was a totally unintended side effect, but going away caused Highguard to become a highly intriguing story. It got content creators talking about where it was or what was happening behind the scenes, and the viewers consuming that content now wanted to see the end results. So in a completely ironic twist, Wildlight ended up achieving what is possibly the hardest part of releasing a game in the modern era. They captured the zeitgeist and got attention on their game. Even if half the people playing it or talking about it are doing so out of pure irony, it kind of doesn't matter. You're getting people in the door. If Highguard is good, all the hate and negativity will go away in an instant and they'll stick around. If Highguard is bad, well then there was no hope anyway. But this whole fiasco has at the very least set them up for a chance. Day 1 peaks for Highguard neared 100,000 concurrent players on Steam, a highly respectable number for just one of the 3 platforms it's available on. Meanwhile, on Twitch, Highguard had over 300,000 total viewers across all streams. These are numbers that I can guarantee you would have been significantly lower if not for the curiosity that came from its marketing story. It was certainly a wild ride to get here, one that probably left Wildlight employees with a lot of sleepless nights, and no doubt had Jeff Keighley feeling quite guilty. But in the end, I'm actually not sure Highguard could have asked for a better start than this. The full shadow drop they initially planned never would have gotten this many eyeballs on it. So while there is quite literally no possible scenario where these numbers do not come crashing down over the next few days, Highguard was exposed to a much larger audience than it ever would have been without the Game Awards situation. Now they just need to hope enough players stick around to keep the game viable. As I read back everything I just wrote, this whole thing feels pretty anticlimactic. Did we really just spend a whole month theorizing about this mystery FPS that disappeared after closing the biggest gaming event of the year, only for it to end up being a completely normal, average experience? Yeah, pretty much. Maybe it's a lesson that we all need to just chill out a little bit. I don't love this new mindset that every game is either God's greatest gift to Earth or a massive flop that needs to be mercilessly ridiculed. Sometimes a game is just okay. Sometimes people really like that okay game and play it for a long time, and sometimes they don't. It doesn't always have to go much deeper than that. Is it fair to question whether they should have closed the Game Awards? Absolutely. But there is nothing in this package worthy of being treated as harshly as it has. Highguard is the most okayest of okay games I've ever played, and while that's not exactly the kind of endorsement you slap on the back of the box, it's a much more positive outcome than I would have expected a few weeks ago. For the sake of this clearly talented dev team, I hope it works out for them and the game can live on for the players who will fall in love with it. And if it doesn't, well, I'll see you all back here for the How Not to Save a Game video about it.